Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Your Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale, as well as the latest episode of Krypton. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I have to say about this week's episode of Riverdale, you can skip to what I have to say about this week's episode of Krypton. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Riverdale. A great episode, in fact, a musical episode, which I'd completely forgotten about because I remember reading that like a week or two that this episode was going to be about being a musical, but I completely forgot until I started singing. I'm like, oh. Also, side note, I didn't catch it at the end of the previous episode that Kevin's whole play was based around Carrie. That's kind of interesting. Not that familiar with the story. I know the basic premise of it. I don't remember like the minute detail. So a lot of this stuff, because obviously this episode was very well constructed because a lot of the characters in the story are playing well into their roles. Like, Archie being the boy next door, the hero, and you have like Veronica playing like the spoiled rich girl, and Betty so like they're all kind of playing a role, even Chuck playing the villain, which is even more doubly funny and weird because like the actor who plays Chuck also plays Khalil on Black Lightning, where he became kind of a bad guy, which is it's just interesting how that all kind of like ties together on many different levels like that. But I thought it was kind of ingeniously done, where it's like while they're playing these roles that they're kind of casted as, like these characters are supposed to be representations of themselves, but obviously those representation like, for example, for Archie, like being like the good hero, the good neighbor kid who always does the right thing, the hero, like that role has been skewed for Archie himself because he's just kind of been skating on that road of kind of doing things where he always tries to do the right thing, but it doesn't always kind of pan out the way he wants to, kind of get caught up in a lot of dark things. So it's just kind of interesting to see that applies to everyone, because a big part of this episode was about everyone. Not only was like the choreography for the dance numbers and the singing, because the singing was both on stage and also like in their like personal connections between characters, like Cheryl apologizing to Josie about the whole situation, which is like, I mean, to be fair, it was that situation where Cheryl was kind of going through a dark time, and also because it's like, well, she was all, I interpreted it as like, well, her potentially having feelings for Josie, but she didn't really know how to like let it be known at that time, like how she really felt, because that was kind of something that her mom kind of shut down. So that was just her way of or maybe it is just like, oh, she wanted Josie all to herself type of thing. I don't know. I still kind of not really sure whether it's just 100% like an obsessive friend thing, or was it like she actually had intimate feelings for Josie. If they were intimate, it doesn't seem like, I don't know. I mean, she's got Tony now, so I guess it's no longer. And I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to think about. Obviously, the whole Betty Veronica thing, which Archie tried to like tell like Betty is like, go easy on Veronica, because she's throwing it in her face. It's like, oh, Veronica's being the spoiled rich kid, but it's like, no, there's a lot more to Veronica. Like everything Veronica does, like she's already made it clear in the past. Like obviously Betty and the others don't know, but everything she's ever done when associated with her family is because she's trying to keep her family on the right path. In particular, her dad. Her dad kind of did some shady stuff, and obviously her mom does some shady stuff, but she wants to make sure that, yeah, they might go about things not like the most morally gray areas, but at the very least they're not full on, like it's not full on black and white. It's not like, oh, they're doing pure evil stuff. She's there to make sure they don't do anything out there too outlandish or too crazy, which obviously she doesn't know about a lot of the stuff that Archie's kind of done, because I'm sure under these circumstances a lot of stuff he's done for Hiram, like she would probably frown upon. But, and it's like, Veronica's stressing about that. Plus, she's literally got everyone around her hating her because it's like, oh, you're the one behind all this, especially because she's got her best friend Betty hating her too. But they were able to kind of mend fences in this as well. Cheryl kind of got pulled off the play because of her mom. It's like, dude, Penelope can't help her. It's like, why do you hate Cheryl so much? I don't get that hate. Why? What is she like? Even before all this, she's always, and it, like I said, it's not even just her. It even seemed like Clifford had a problem with her too. It's like, why do y'all, like, I guess Jason was the favorite, but even Jason knew that there were problems, like his family was screwed up and wanted to get away from them. So, and I think that just the sad thing is, whereas before it was like, oh, at least it'd be both of them kind of suffering potentially. And yes, Cheryl might get even if she did get the brunt of it, at least she had Jason there to balanced her out. But she doesn't have that like safety net anymore. She kind of has to take everything on her own, her mom's abuse and everything. So, and her mom just being controlling, just being downright asshole. It's like, oh, you want to be Carrie, like living out this fantasy about killing your mom. And it's like, it's not going to happen. It's like, God, you have to be such a dick. But Tony, I love it. Like Cheryl's like, I don't think I can be the same woman that burned down, the mansion or cut off my mom's oxygen tube. And Tony's like, yes, you can. I'm like, that's so weird that I guess you're backing your girlfriend up. I get it. More power to you. But it's just like, I guess Tony knows all about that. Which I guess that says a lot too, because not many people know about that side of Cheryl and accept that. I guess maybe, considering the fact is that Tony is still a serpent and everything. I guess maybe that. It's why she's like, oh yeah, we all got a little darkness in us. We're all a little complex, but I like you for who you are, Cheryl. So it might be that type of thing. I don't know. Which is kind of interesting, because even I've talked about it before. Cheryl kind of like went down. Like, yeah, she's done some like shady stuff, but it's like she's been pretty like good in comparison to how she was at the beginning. Like season finale to where she was at the beginning of the season. It's like, yeah, burning down the house and like blocking your mom's too, and just like, oh, things are going to be different, mommy. But like it slipped. I guess it's just because like at some point in time, Penelope kind of got all the control back, and just Cheryl just started slipping more and more with everything happening around them. But now it's like, nah, Cheryl's back. I love it. Cane covered in blood. It's like, this is Jason's blood. This is Daddy's blood. And the fact of the matter is, if anything happens to Nana Rose, if she's even one hair's out of place, I will end you. I'm like, yeah, Cheryl. And she's just kind of like, yeah, Thistle House. She's like, I'm going to get emancipated. This house is going to be mine and Nana Rose. So you and Claudius need to get the hell out. It's like, yeah. It's like, because I'm glad, because it's like, oh, her mom is like trying to act all tough and everything. But it's like, it's kind of, like I said, like I keep saying, I've said it so many damn times. I'm sure anyone that might be hearing these and hearing me say it over and over again is sick of it. But I do love the complexity that is Cheryl, of just like, you're kind of like, wow, she's just kind of, I don't like the way Cheryl handles herself, but any situation you're like, yeah. Just because of her, like when it comes to her family, you're kind of like, yeah, go as full crazy as you need to, Cheryl, because your family sucks. They suck so much, so here's that. Sadly, she never did get to reprise her role at the end, because she still needed her mom's permission at the end. And I guess with it all said and done, she knew her mom was never going to give it. But it's like, I don't care. I'm gonna step my foot down. So I don't know. I was kind of hoping she would get it back. It was also interesting to find out that thing about Ethel too, because they're like, oh yeah, who was the one that would want to get Cheryl out of the way, like the sandbag accident and stuff like that. And it's like, who would want to do that? And it's like, oh, Ethel. And Ethel's like, oh, I'd never do anything to hurt somebody for my sake. It's like, that's not 100% true. I mean, what about the whole Veronica thing when you found out everything between her and her family? I mean, you didn't get physical, but you did like, wasn't it milk or a milkshake or something? I think it was a milkshake, because they pointed out the fact is, I don't know how to feel about it, because the fact is she dumped a milkshake on me, but the fact is that she went all the way to Pops and brought it here and dumped a milkshake on me. So there's that. So it's like, let's not pretend like Ethel doesn't kind of have a mean streak in her too. She has one. Which like a lot of stuff in this episode pointed to her potentially being the one behind, because initially she was supposed to be Carrie, but she's like, I was born to be Carrie, but she didn't get her chance. She didn't even get to try out, because it was just automatically went to Cheryl. Mainly that's because Cheryl just kind of is who she is, and it's just like, I want this role, give it to me, Kevin. I want the role. Okay, it's yours, Cheryl. So, and then Mitch being the understudy, it's like, because you saw it like, oh, Cheryl can't be her anymore, and it can't be Carrie anymore. You saw a smirk on Ethel's face, and it's like, and her understudy, Mitch, and it's just kind of, you can tell it didn't sit well with Ethel. I mean, granted, the evidence kind of points to her potentially being the one, but nevertheless, aside from all that, we got the stuff between Betty and her mom, which that was sad. Because for Betty's mom, it's like, for Alice, it's like, I'm scared that I'm going to be the only one. So I know, I do appreciate the fact is that she was in the play too. I thought that was kind of neat. But for her, it's like, even when she was singing, because you can even hear at the end at one point, she instead of like, she's saying Carrie, she said Betty. And even Betty kind of turned to look at Jughead like, did she just say my name? And she's like, please just don't go. And Betty's like, okay, is mom singing to me? It's like, it's so sad, because she's like, everyone else around me is going. She can't get in contact with Chick. Obviously the problem she has with Hal right now. And it's just like, she's afraid that Betty's going to leave too, because it's not just like, oh, everyone just leaves me. I push people away, and she's scared to kind of be alone. And it's like, oh, that's so sad. But things between her and Hal kind of get back to where they're supposed to be. Be fair, it's a complicated situation because there's a whole situation between FP and Alice, which even at the beginning you see like Alice kind of got this like swag to her, and then when she goes in talking to FP, and then it's kind of FP's kind of like, I don't know about this, Alice. And like, he doesn't say that, but Alice is like, oh, you're giving me the cold shoulder. I guess, potentially something happened when we last left her and she was dropped off the FP's place. I can only assume. She's kind of like, oh, we were so worried about Jughead and Betty, but we're the ones kind of making mistakes. It's like, because basically they went through this before, but things didn't work out for whatever reason, and she ended up being with Hal, and it's like we're going through that same motions again. Sad thing is, FP actually showed up at the play, but then he saw that Hal was there. So I don't know if she's really wanting to get, because like obviously Hal was kind of like, oh, we got to get all the secrets out there, so like our secrets can't hurt us anymore, which I think could work doubly for her, because for Alice it's like, well, there's the dead body situation, so there's that. Which neither her nor Betty have been like, oh yeah, Hal, so let's tell you about that, because it's like, I honestly don't know how Hal would react. He might turn Alice in. I mean, he already hates chicks, so it might be like, oh, let's blame it all on him and just be done with this. But then it's kind of like, well, it'll kind of fall on them too. He might be pissed at Alice and be like, oh, you got our daughter mixed up in this. Oh, it's all on you and chick. And so I'm keeping Betty out of this. You might turn to a custody issue type of thing. I don't know. But also I think it's the other thing I'm thinking of is like the whole FP and her situation. I'm sure she's not going to let Hal know that. Even though Hal had his whole situation with Penelope. Doesn't she know that now? I could have sworn that was the whole thing. Like she knew about the whole... I don't think Betty told her. I think she just knew. Maybe even if she didn't. I can't remember if Hal knows, if Alice knows about the whole Hal and Penelope situation. Either way, if they don't, they both kind of got their own little kind of affair secrets going on, so. And then there also is the question, because Hal's like, yeah, I always had a feeling Chick wasn't mine, so it's like, who the hell is he? It's like, because even Betty brought it up, is it FP's? And it's like, no, because once again, that'd be kind of a weird situation, but I don't know. We'll have to, I'm curious to see how that circles back around to who his actual dad is. Because that was another thing, too, because for Alice, it's like, oh, I gave up Chick when he was a baby, and now I'm literally doing it again, so... Which, Chick shows up, being weird like usual, pops up and obviously kind of knocks Betty off kilter. It's kind of interesting, because I was like, is that the first time Archie or Veronica have met Chick was in that instant? I think so. I don't think they've ever met him before, because I think the only one that's actually met him is Kevin and... Jughead are the only ones that have ever met him inside like that group of friends. What's also interesting, like I said, getting back to like Chuck, for example, and they're like, yeah, Chuck, you're so cool. Yeah, you've been so good lately. I'm like, I don't know, man. He might actually be the one behind this. I mean, it kind of would make sense because he knows that like Cheryl's behind the whole thing, so that could have been all a ploy to get back at her. Because I mean, the thing is, it's like, oh yeah, casting Cheryl as this, so it's like, okay, so it's the first, like, were the first two notes not actually from the Black Hood, but like the final message with like, Mitch kind of like with stabbed against the wall with the message like, I'm back, and essentially I'm alive. It's like, holy crap. So was that because he knew that someone was like, that's the thing, like, is this kind of trying to say that the Black Hood isn't just some like adult, that it is actually a teenager that is amongst them? I think that could be like what they're hinting at. I mean, like I said, there's the evidence pointing towards Ethel being kind of behind this, but it's like, is she? Like, I don't know. I mean, because going back to it is that situation of like, Archie saw the Black Hood's eyes, so it's like, it has to be an adult. Like, not unless someone, like some teenager or something is putting on this. Like, what bit? Because, I mean, to be fair, it kind of makes sense because who he went after before. I mean, it can easily mean that Moose is next, too, because it's like, amongst his victims, like Moose and Mitch are the only ones that survived. Everyone else he's ever gone after. It's like, but why strike now? I guess like, oh, you've forgotten. I guess maybe he knows about some of Cheryl's sins. The reason why, have no idea what that could be, like what that represents. Like, I feel like it's weird for an adult to come after kids like that. Like the whole, like, I'm not saying it's good, but like at least his motives you can understand because it's like, oh yeah, they were connected to Jingle Jangle, so that makes sense. So I guess like cleaning house, like, you know, picking up where you left off, sure, but I don't know. It seemed like the whole like Cheryl S. Carey thing, that did seem like petty. That seemed like someone into play. Like I said, my money's kind of on Chick more. I mean, not Chick, Chuck more than it is anyone else. But I mean, that's just my mindset on it. We'll have to wait and see. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh wow, because I didn't realize how much time was left in the episode. Did not realize it's like, wow, we're ending off on a stinger like that. Which I'm not surprised. Like, I've kept being like, yeah, I know the Black Hood's still alive. It's just like I'm surprised he hadn't circled back into the story yet. Now, what I also thought was kind of interesting about this episode was the whole situation about like how you have Hiram trying to keep the distance between Archie and his dad. Was that, you know, it's like, oh, Fred's got this whole campaign of like, oh, he's a family man, but he doesn't have his entire family with him. Archie's actually on the Lodge's side. And so to kind of keep that division even more, he basically outed Archie about the whole car situation in front of Fred, knowing it would be kind of a low blow. And Archie's like, don't do that. And he did it, which is like, that was a dick move. And at first, when like you hear like, you know, Hiram bring up the whole like keeping them divided, you see that look on Hermione's face like, oh, she's concerned. And then later on he's like, oh, I got a devious plan, and she's like, oh, let me know about it. I don't know, maybe I don't know, like she flip-flops so much. Sometimes it seems like, oh, she's caring, and then, oh, maybe she has a heart in a situation, and other times it's like, no, she's just as kind of vicious and manipulative as Hiram can be in some regards. And it's just like, I don't get that. Like, what's up with you? Like, it seemed like for a moment, like, oh, you were like, oh, you felt bad because you didn't want Archie to kind of be manipulated, or Fred, because I think on some level she still kind of cares for Fred. Maybe she's trying to overcompensate and pretend like she doesn't. I don't know. Because I think on some level, her feelings for him were real until it was just kind of like the duty that I don't know, maybe she was playing Fred the entire time. Maybe that was the point. Maybe that's what they've been kind of leaning into this entire season. I didn't really catch that. Like, legitimately in my mind, it's like, oh, maybe it did feel real, but maybe it's just reality. Step back in, and it's like a Lodge. This is what I needed to do. This, me getting caught up with Fred was never supposed to be part of the equation, you know? So, but nevertheless, it hurt Fred because it's like, I think it's kind of dickish to be like, oh, didn't I teach you not to be like, you know, so selfish? It's like, really? Like, that's like, you know, it's like, oh, like, it's almost like he was calling Archie an asshole for getting the car. I'm like, I mean, it was a gift. Like, I mean, he's working with a lot. Like, you know, it's like, but it's like, you calling him out like that, I thought that's kind of a dick move. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you're hurt. I get it. But still, that's kind of a dick move. But I did like Archie's line when it was all said and done. Was the fact is he gave it back and he was like, yeah, you are my boss, Mr. Lodge, but do know this. Don't ever try to come between me and my dad again. It is a battle you will always lose. I'm like, oh, Archie. And he's like, here's the keys back to the Firebird back. I'm like, yeah. And obviously he buys this beat up car so that him and his dad can work on it together, kind of a pet project. So it looks like I said, I appreciate this episode of like, you have this musical happening, but at the same time we have fits that's being mended all over the place. You know, so like it's more like a very character driven episode with a little bit of plot development, but mainly it's just like, oh, like, which obviously fits into the plot development, but I always feel like character like progression, it's weird. I always treat it different than story plot progression, even though they're kind of one and the same in most cases. Like, it's just kind of, I guess in my mind, I separate them. But it's just kind of nice that was kind of development that it seems like they are etching towards being good. It's kind of interesting because you have Jughead being the one documenting everything, which I guess it kind of fits because it's all like everything is kind of told from Jughead's perspective when it comes to the whole story. Anyway, him being the writer and everything, the one kind of telling the news with everything. So, I mean, overall, just a great episode. Obviously, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store. Like I said, also fantastic aspects of it being a musical. Like I've talked about this because like a lot of stuff I've been watching, like TV shows. Obviously, The Flash had one. The Magicians had one this season to an extent, but like there was definitely one last season. That's like, I feel like as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate musical bits more. Cause I feel like when I was younger, I didn't care too much about it. I was just kind of like, oh, this musical stuff. Like, but no, like, especially like a lot of Disney animated stuff. I feel like probably if I went back and rewatched a lot of stuff from when I grew up, like Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and stuff like that. I like the stories, but I feel like I didn't care too much about the musical aspects, but I feel like I care about them now. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the thing now where everyone now cares about musicals, but I don't know if it's just musicals or just musicals in this shape and form that I really appreciate. I mean, which is kind of interesting because it's like, well, this is a musical within a TV show, which these musicals are played within this TV. It's just kind of layers deep on just the meta behind it. Nevertheless, I'm just kind of rambling on. Like I said, I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Krypton, a good episode with a lot of crazy things that kind of went down this episode. So let's break everything down bit by bit. Seg ended up obviously continuing his escape from the pseudo Black Zero group with the whole commander and everything. And he ends up saving a woman named Rika who's protecting something that's like, it's what this group wants. What that is exactly, well, we don't know. But it takes her back to her people. Her people seem kind of like this lost group. Because they talk about an ice goddess, so I'm guessing like they're people who are kind of like of an older, like, maybe they were one of the like top, maybe they were kind of like one of those lost families of Krypton or something like that. Or maybe they branched off from the Kryptonians that live in Kandor. But basically, I'm guessing it's a situation because like which is kind of interesting if that's the case, because it's like, oh, there's an ice goddess, and then like obviously Kandor, like God, what I'm trying to think of the word, prayed to Ra. That's what I'm trying to think. I don't know why I struggle with that, but nevertheless, they don't like Seg. And I like the whole thing of like, yeah, I saved Rika, yeah. And I very heroically too. It's like, I love that you're puffing yourself up, Seg. I love it. But the fact is, they don't like him because he's an L, which for what reason we don't know. Like, well, Rika kind of brings up the fact is that L's are kind of like, because even when the dudes is like, let's kill him, L's are dangerous. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Apparently, it's like they've caused destruction in the past. Why this group is like, oh, we don't know what we're going to do with an L. Because Seg kind of lies to Rika and is like, oh yeah, but the fact of the matter is my brothers and my cousins will come. They don't know that he's the last of the L's. I mean, to be fair, they're disconnected from Kandor society, so they don't know where the L's stand in all of this. But immediately my brain goes, could this be kind of connected to what I was bringing up before about the whole situation with Brainiac, that maybe Brainiac was originally created by the L's or something like that. But then after, thinking about that this episode too, I was thinking like, well, what if I'm actually wrong? What if this situation, obviously it's time travel and stuff like that, but what if inadvertently Brainiac is stopped here and the L's basically helped formulate, like take Brainiac and kind of convert him into something that they can use on Krypton? Like, what if that's what they're doing for this series? Like, what if that ends up kind of being like how Brainiac plays into Krypton's history in a sense. Like, he was taken and reprogrammed. It's like, oh, this technology, all that he was, we can't let it completely go to waste. Let's do some good with it. And so like maybe that's kind of where the direction is potentially heading. Could be, but I think that would kind of make the most sense. Not unless they're kind of referencing the fact is that maybe in the past the L's were kind of like the biggest people for destruction because they built weapons of mass destruction essentially, and maybe that's what's being hidden away, because I would assume that's what the commander would want, a weapon, something that's powerful enough to destroy Brainiac. So maybe that's what's that's representing. Or maybe another possibility, kind of once again on the same time travel thing, what if it's actually Brainiac that's sealed within, that they're trying to protect the L's, like trying to keep the L's away from, and that's Brainiac in the future trying to also get access to his earlier form so that basically he can free himself sooner, and it's like, oh yeah, now everything is going to be doubly fucked because two of us are out here roaming the universes and galaxies taking over thing. I know that's kind of like a way out there, but there's just kind of random stuff that's kind of popping in my head about the whole situation. Hopefully we can kind of get some answers to that soon. I mean, like, we really don't know anything about why the L's are so hated by this group, so ultimately we kind of have to wait on that. But all the while this is happening, we have Lyta's situation. Her situation with Dev seems very complicated, because it's like Dev seems like he's loved her for a very long time. He's like, oh yeah, I know you didn't feel the same for me, but Lyta kisses him and is like, no, I love you. But especially when you look at her face, it's like, I think it's a combination of many different things. She knows that she can't be with Seg, whatever, no matter what the circumstances may be, no matter how she feels about it, she can never be with him. But then there's also like the whole him and Nissa situation, him being part of like Vex. So it's kind of like, that probably dampers that. But I think it's also because in Lightest mind, it's like, I'm about to be executed, so I don't want you to think like I don't care about you. It's like kind of giving him like a final kiss, because maybe in her mind she didn't think like, oh, I've lived to see the day, so I just want to, to share this intimate moment. It's like, it's kind of like a strenuous situation. Like, he's there, obviously he cares about her, and she cares about him, obviously not in the same way, but maybe it's just kind of like, it's just under the circumstances she decided to do that. And, like, I'm not saying she doesn't care about him, but maybe it's not to that extent. Or maybe it is. Maybe she legitimately does love him, and it is kind of a split, because it's like, I love Seg, but I also love you, and just feeling all this complicated. Which that's going to be even more of a love triangle situation than I thought it would be. It's kind of more like a love square situation, because obviously Deb has a huge problem with Seg. So, which is so interesting, considering the fact is, like, Deb seems like he's, I don't know, the most rational-headed person, but it almost seems like he treats Seg like crap because he is a rankless. Like, he seems like he's no different from most, like, Sagittarii and stuff, like, thinking like, oh yeah, you're just rankless scum. Like, I don't know. He seems very prejudiced in that regard, but to be fair, that's also stemming from his own personal situation of losing his family, Black Zero, that whole situation, so... But a big part of this was learning more about the Zod family, because the Zods kind of live by, obviously, like, duty and honor amongst all else. And then you have Nyssa trying to convince Jaina, like, you can save your daughter, just align with my dad, but Jaina won't, because we kind of get a look in her past. She even kind of left her own brother for dead. To be fair, her brother attacked her first. He was like, hey, we can share this respirator, but because the whole Zod family is all about not showing weakness. You have to be strong, like, not letting anything get in the way of your duties, not even family. And obviously, like, it sucks, because she kind of left her brother there to die. But once again, he did it first. She was like, hey, we can share this, but he tried to do that. I mean, to be fair, and the sad thing is, that's just how the Zods were kind of like, they're meant to be warriors. They're supposed to be protectors. So it's like, you need to be the top of the top, and you can't let such a pesky thing as love and family be in the way, which is kind of such a shame that mentality exists, But that being ingrained in her at such a young age is what keeps Jaina, like, so split. Because obviously she doesn't want to listen to what Nyssa or Darren has to say. Because it's all, in all honesty, you're just using me. I'm not stupid. Like, I'm just a means to an end. And obviously there's a whole situation of, like, well, Zods bow down to no one. So there's that. But also it's like, this is my daughter. Like, cause what leaves me so conflicted is because it's like, it does, like, I think I do agree with what Nyssa says. Like, obviously they do have their ulterior motives, but it's like, you are obviously so stubborn in this because you Zods are so all about, like, honor and following duty. But it's like, literally your duty is screwing over your daughter, because it's like, I mean, like, the act of, like, protecting this power, the voice, listening to what the voice of Rao has to say. The voice of Rao is the reason why your daughter's in this situation in the first place, is what I'm trying to get across. And it's like, why would you serve a guy like that? It's like, he's kind of like, even this, it kind of brings up he's power hungry and this and that, but it's like it's like they try not, it's like they blindly follow. It's like, this is my duty, this is the duty we've always had to follow, so like we can't deviate from that. Is it just she's not willing to see the voice of Ralph for who he really is? Or maybe she does, but it is just that whole aspect of duty that kind of blinds her. I don't know, but it's like, once again, it's also because it's like, I can't let my emotions, my love for my daughter get in the way. So it kept getting closer and closer to execution. I'm like, she's not doing anything. She's not doing what? I'm like, aren't you going to step in? You're going to step in, Jaina? Like, what are you going to do? And then the execution is stopped. Interestingly enough, by Darren. I didn't expect that. But the way the conversation goes later on, like, Lyta's like, oh, Mom, you're the one who saved me. Because she's like, don't ever give thanks to this. It wasn't them. Which her mom says, you've always been my greatest love, and now you're my greatest shame. Because basically she had to bend. That, like, Zods bow down to no one, and she had to bow down to Nyssa and give in to what they want to save her own daughter. And it's a combination of it being like, oh, like, I put you before my duties is another way, I guess, of looking at it. Which is like, the fact of the matter is that you're willing to do whatever for your child should be your biggest pride. But because of just that mentality that the Zods have, that's just sad and just shitty. And it kind of makes Lyta feel like it's her fault when it's not. Like, she was literally screwed over by the system. Literally, voice of Rao, and Darren kind of came together, like. But once again, it's just like Jaina's not acting upon that, and I don't know why. Beyond that, like, there's just flawed logic in that, because your duty is to protect Krypton and stuff like that, to be kind of Kandor's shield, and I'm like, well, wouldn't that best be done by taking out like a tyrant. It's kind of what the voice of Rao kind of is, putting you in this situation, doing this, abusing their power. It seems like that should kind of be in your purview of like being, Zods, kind of being the warriors that you are, but I guess it does. I don't know. Like I said, it's interesting to see that side of Jaina, kind of seeing that tone, because you can see the entire time, like she wanted to say something, but she just couldn't act. So, but then there's the other side of me that's like, did she actually do anything? Like, I guess she held, like, I guess, because I guess Nissa didn't know what she was doing. So, because Darren came out the last second, so I'm guessing like Jaina did say something earlier, and she was just, the entire time she knew Darren was coming, but she was probably like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. So maybe, but because part of me was wondering, like, was she saying that, but did she actually not actually do anything? That was it actually Darren and him that made it all happen? And Jaina just kind of like conflicted, maybe that she didn't do it. I think it's the former, but there is a part of me that was like, oh, is she kind of sad because I thought you'd be a little glad because you didn't have to do it, but it's like, no, it turns out you did have to do it. Because I was wondering if it was a bit of shame, because it's like, oh, it took someone else stepping in to save you, not me. So, I don't know. It's just interesting development. And along the same lines with Nissa, we do learn that the fact of the matter is, it's something that comes up when Darren's like, why are you crying so hard? He's like, oh, you actually care about Seg. And she's kind of like, this isn't just about manipulations. On some level, she actually cares about Seg because she sees what kind of a good person he is. And I think that kind of shine through. Yes, he's just a piece of the puzzle, but I think, I don't know. Or maybe you can't tell with her. Maybe that's further manipulation. I don't know. But I do think on some level, because she knows how much, the reason why Seg is fighting so hard for her is because he loves her. And I guess that love and devotion is something she's envious of, and she admires about him being so strong-willed about it. So that was kind of an interesting development. And then you have the whole situation with Seg sending out a message to Adam, which Adam gave that message to Lyta, is basically him saying, like, I love you. And so Lyta goes with Adam and Sagittari to go save Seg. And I think you hear Nissa kind of overhearing the conversation, and she almost has this look on her, well, because she didn't know the situation that Seg was in, but knowing that he knew he was potentially going to die, and that the fact is the last thing he wanted to say was a message to Lyta, kind of speaks volumes. So, which is also interesting. I kind of skipped over it. I did not know the whole thing with Koldar, that Sagittari lady that was full of crap and was lying, obviously, and Darren, they were a thing. Apparently, she's been in on this since the very beginning, so maybe, I don't know. Well, because she's always kind of sided with him is kind of the point. Like, not from the very beginning. Like, once his circumstances played out the way they did, it's like, oh, we need a fall guy. Like, then, like, Koldar was kind of like, oh, yeah, I'll help you take her down. But it's like, she always believed in their cause and everything. And it's like, oh, when this is all said and done, you'll get out and we can be blah, 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 love. But basically, they made it so it looks like she committed suicide. And it was like, oh, yeah, like, now everything kind of falls on her because now she's dead and she can't like bring anything up like, no, this is all a lie and manipulation. I was told a lie. All that, loose ends can't be left, well, loose. But what's kind of interesting, it's like for Nissa, it's like, oh wow, the fact is you actually legitimately loved her. But it surprises me because not only did you actually legitimately love her, but the fact is you did this to someone you love. And Darren was like, yeah, but you gave me no choice, which says a lot too, because it's like when he wants to do what he needs to do, what he needs to get done, he's willing to sacrifice anyone. But the moment he's walking away, you see a smile across Nissa's face, and it's like I said, she's just prepared. Like, I don't know what that could be interpreted many different ways. I'm interpreting it still as like she's aiming for power. She wants her dad to be in a position because the moment he's in that position, when he's taking control of everything, she's going to take him out so that she's the one that controls everything. Like, I still think that's her whole entire plan. Could be entirely wrong, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's just, I don't know. Like, because that's why I'm kind of like still, that's why I keep saying, like, I don't know if you can trust everything Nissa says and does, because you can't really read her, because it's hard to say, what's really truly how she feels and what she wants done and what's just kind of more lies and manipulation. So who knows? But sadly for Seg, it wasn't Lyta who found him. It was in fact the commander, and he drags Seg back. And what's interesting too is like he ends up saying like, oh, we need to find that lady, Rom, because I mean, to be fair, like they don't know the current circumstances. Like the fact that I guess even in her current state, like cause we don't know what they ended up doing with what Adam or Val ended up doing with her her body, but I guess she still has valuable information because that Sentry is still in her system, so it can give them some data. Probably like do some little backtracking into maybe Brainiac's system, so she could be of use. But neither one of them knows that she's dead yet, so I don't know what those circumstances going to be. But what really surprised me was the whole Lyda and the Commander situation. Like, I was like, oh, because like at first when I saw this happening, I'm like, it clicked in my head. I was like, oh my God, he's her uncle, isn't he? Because it's like the last time we saw Jaina's brother, it was like out in this area, and she left him. I was like, oh my God, that's totally got to be her uncle. He's been alive this entire time. He's not dead. And it's like, oh yeah, but didn't he have different color eyes? It's like, well, maybe he's covering up one of his eyes or something like that. And then he sees the necklace around her neck, and it's like, oh, and it's like, and he's laughing. She's like, why are you laughing? He's like, oh, I got this. She's like, where'd you get it from? And it's like, you gave it to me. I'm your son. I'm like, what? Twist I didn't see coming, because I'm like, oh God, it's going to obviously be this. It's like, oh, that's obviously her uncle. No, her son. I'm like, wait, so that means you're from the future too? How many damn people from the future are here? I mean, at the very least, we know, I mean, now that makes at least 3. Once again, like, as I keep bringing it up, I'm not, like, I thought because my entire thought was, like, someone else from the future came here to kind of screw with things. But the way this plot almost makes it implies that it's Brainiac. So to me, it's like, it seems like those are two, like, I've been still kind of treating them as 2 separate situations, when in actuality, maybe they're the same. Like, I don't know if they're one and the same issue, or whether they're 2 separate issues kind of coinciding and kind of being, like, what I mean is that Brainiac is the one from the future, and he's the one that's causing all these problems trying to get rid of Superman. Or I'm saying that the other thing is that they are connected in the sense that someone else is from the future, came back in time, and is kind of using this Brainiac situation as a means to get rid of Superman in the future. That's kind of been my thought process. So it's like, okay, so he's from the future too, which is going to be interesting, because it's like when the conversation comes up, it's like, whoa, you're from the future? I mean, he hasn't bumped into Adam yet, so maybe when he meets Adam, maybe that'll change things. Is he actually? Well, no, because he has to be a Kryptonian, so he wouldn't know anything about Earth. So I mean, he is her son. So it's like, how is that possible? Because I was thinking, because that would make him like potentially like Zod, the Zod that we know in like Superman canon, like. Maybe that's his dad. Like, I was thinking like Lyda might be his great grandmother, not great grandmother, just grandmother, right? No, is it? I'm blanking. I'm forgetting. Yeah, because Seg is, yes, Cal's grandfather, right? I'm like screwing this all up in my head. I do apologize. Yeah, that was all. I kept forgetting like the relationships already. Sorry, nevertheless. So I'm curious to see how that all kind of like plays out. Like, what does that mean? Like, how did he get to how can he be as old as he is and still, that doesn't make any. What's up with that? Does that mean at some point in time Krypton gets time travel technology? You don't think they're doing something crazy like setting it up like he is in fact Zod? Because let's not forget, Zod was like, I mean, at least with Supergirl canon. Well, I think most canon, he's in the Phantom Zone. Him and his group are in the Phantom Zone when Krypton explodes. So do you think, like, I don't know, how would that still be? How would you get back into the past? Because that wouldn't make any sense. Because I was like, maybe this is like, maybe he's like the Zod from the story, like Superman canon, but this is just him before Krypton exploded, going back even further. I don't know. I have no idea like how that all works. I'm confusing the hell out of myself with all these thoughts. So I don't know. It's just interesting. Like, I'm very interested to see where things go from now. Things keep getting more and more interesting as this series progresses along. So I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good